America once again finds itself under the spell of an election result that has stunned the world. The White House will welcome back Donald Trump, a name that still sparks fierce emotions on every corner of the political spectrum. But this isn't just an American issue, it's a seismic shift that has rippled across oceans, stirring responses from allies and adversaries alike. Amidst these reactions, one stands out. From Moscow, a voice that America has viewed with suspicion and at times hostility. Vladimir Putin has formally congratulated Donald Trump, calling him a courageous leader, a compliment that, coming from Putin, carries weight and intention. For years, Russia has watched America's shifting political tides, sometimes with optimism, often with apprehension. Now Putin extends an olive branch. It's a rare and cautious invitation, a signal that the Kremlin is willing to try something it hasn't attempted in years, a reset. But beneath this formal gesture lies a complex game of strategy and expectation. Russia and the US have been down this path before. They've tried resets, watched them crumble, and picked up the pieces afterward. Is there anything different this time? Can Trump and Putin overcome decades of distrust, global power struggles, and deep ideological divides to forge something new? Or are we about to witness yet another attempt destined to fade into history? In Washington, D.C., the air is thick with a mix of celebration and disbelief. Half of America's voters have rallied behind Trump, seeing him as a leader who speaks directly to them, a force against the political establishment, a defender of the working class, and a fighter for conservative values. But just as many Americans are uneasy, fearful of what a second Trump presidency will bring. They remember the last 4 years and worry about a return to policies that stirred anger and division. For many, this election wasn't just a vote for or against Trump. It was a reflection of America's unresolved tensions, its divisions laid bare. This time, the divides run deeper, crossing lines of race, religion, gender, geography, and notably, education. America's ideological split isn't just a matter of differing beliefs. It's a clash of lived experiences and worldviews. The stakes feel higher than ever, with each side convinced that the future of the nation depends on the outcome. Amidst these divides, President Joe Biden attempts to bring calm to the situation. In a speech marked by grace and humility, Biden assures the nation that he will ensure a smooth transition of power. But his words, while noble, don't heal the fractures. Behind the scenes, his own party is fractured, torn between loyalty to Biden's legacy and anger over what many perceive as his role in their loss. There's talk of his handling of domestic and foreign policy, his decisions on critical issues, and even his missteps in the final days of the campaign. The Democrats find themselves at a crossroads, forced to confront their identity, their strategies, and their future in an America that's rapidly changing. And as Trump's supporters celebrate, Biden's supporters brace themselves, not quite ready to accept the reality of a Trump presidency redux. Beyond America's borders, leaders are taking note, many of them holding their breath, watching with a mix of concern and anticipation. Nowhere is this reaction more measured and calculated than in Moscow. The relationship between the United States and Russia has been a study in contrast, a back-and-forth cycle of hope and disappointment, diplomatic breakthroughs and sanctions, symbolic gestures, and calculated snubs. The Cold War may be over, but the tensions it seeded have never fully died. For years, the U.S. has portrayed Russia as a looming threat, a cyber power with interests that often conflict with those of the West. Sanctions have become a near-constant feature of U.S. policy toward Russia, and accusations of election interference, military aggression, and cyber espionage have poisoned the well of diplomacy. The two nations have navigated a cautious standoff, each waiting to see what the other will do next. But with Trump's re-election, Putin seems willing to try something different. In his congratulatory message, Putin is careful with his words, choosing them with the precision of a seasoned diplomat. He calls Trump courageous, a man who has demonstrated resilience and strength. This isn't mere flattery. For Putin, it's a signal. Putin has survived his share of crises, faced down enemies both foreign and domestic, and he values strength. By acknowledging Trump's, he's inviting the U.S. president to step into a role he respects. Yet while Putin's words are outwardly diplomatic, they carry an undertone of calculation. He knows the limitations of American politics. He knows the pressures Trump will face from his own party, from Congress, and from the public. And he knows that any real reset will require both leaders to navigate these pressures skillfully. Is Putin simply testing the waters, or is he genuinely interested in a partnership that could reshape the balance of global power? For Putin, Trump represents more than just a political opportunity. He sees in Trump a figure with whom he might share a unique understanding. Trump's unconventional style, his bluntness, his disregard for the political norms that usually bind U.S. presidents, all of this appeals to Putin. In a way, he sees a mirror of himself, a leader who follows his own path, unafraid to challenge the status quo. Putin's admiration isn't rooted in policy alignment alone. It's personal. He's seen Trump withstand intense scrutiny, survive impeachment, weather criticism, and now return to power. For Putin, this resilience signifies a strength that commands respect. He knows that international diplomacy often boils down to personal dynamics, and he's betting that Trump's personality might create an opening for the kind of dialogue he's long sought with the United States. But Putin is also a realist. He knows that a true reset won't be easy. There are entrenched interests on both sides, powerful forces that have no desire to see the U.S. and Russia cooperating closely. Military alliances, economic policies, and competing influences in regions like the Middle East and Eastern Europe all create significant obstacles. Putin, however, is prepared to play the long game. For him, diplomacy is a chessboard, and he's willing to make the necessary moves if he believes the outcome is worthwhile. In this calculated approach, Putin is setting the stage for Trump. The Russian president is saying, in effect, the door is open, but you have to walk through it. For all his diplomatic skill, Putin knows that Trump will face resistance from the U.S. political establishment. But he also knows that if anyone can cut through that resistance, it's Trump. The question is whether Trump, caught between his vision and the limitations of his office, will take the opportunity or let it slip away. As the world watches Trump's re-election with curiosity, apprehension, and even enthusiasm, it's clear that reactions are far from uniform. Some leaders, especially those who see in Trump an ally against the political mainstream, respond with open celebration. Others, uncertain of what his presidency will mean for international alliances and stability, keep their words cautious and reserved. Take Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro. Trump's last term saw Venezuela face intense U.S. pressure, sanctions, and diplomatic isolation, all in the name of driving Maduro out of office. Yet in a surprising shift, Maduro responds to Trump's re-election not with criticism, but with hope. He speaks of a new beginning, a second chance to rebuild the fractured relationship between Venezuela and the United States. For Maduro, the stakes are high. His country's economy and political stability hang in the balance. While he acknowledges the rocky history between himself and Trump, Maduro is quick to shift the narrative, emphasizing a win-win potential that could benefit both nations. In Argentina, the reaction is different in tone, but equally enthusiastic. President Javier Milei, a populist leader who has often championed Trump's style and policies, sees Trump's victory as a validation of his own approach. From the beginning, Milei supported Trump's candidacy, and now with the election decided, he's eager to align Argentina with the new administration. Unlike Maduro, Milei doesn't dwell on past grievances. He sees an open door for collaboration, a chance to strengthen ties on trade, economic policy, and more. He's not waiting for Trump to make the first move. He's already planning a meeting at Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence, eager to begin what he hopes will be a fruitful alliance. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban shares Milei's excitement. Long a vocal supporter of Trump, Orban views the re-election as a triumph over the European political establishment. Hungary's relationship with the EU has been tense, especially as Orban has pushed back against European liberalism, preferring to chart a more independent course. Trump's win offers Orban something invaluable: an ally on the world stage who understands his desire for sovereignty, someone who doesn't pressure him to conform to Western Europe's agenda. While other European leaders may see Trump's return with trepidation, Orban openly celebrates, raising a glass to what he considers a fantastic result. Yet within the European Union, Trump's victory triggers a different response. European leaders, many of whom have worked closely with the U.S. on issues like NATO, trade, and climate change, are now forced to reconsider their strategies. Trump's previous term brought tensions with Europe, and his promises to reassess America's role in global alliances leave many wondering if they'll soon face reduced U.S. support in areas like defense and foreign aid. As the EU braces for potential changes, a quiet resolve sets in. If America retreats from its commitments, Europe may have to learn to stand alone. A renewed relationship with Russia may be Putin's ambition, but the challenges are formidable. Within the U.S., a powerful network of political, intelligence, and military institutions remain wary of any move that could be perceived as conciliatory toward Russia. For years, these institutions have viewed Russia as a strategic adversary, not a partner. And for some, Trump's friendly rhetoric toward Putin raises red flags, seen not as diplomacy, but as a risk to U.S. security interests. Congress, both Republicans and Democrats alike, hold significant influence in determining foreign policy, and many members remain suspicious of any efforts to align with Russia. Even with a Trump presidency, a formal reset would require approval from lawmakers who are under constant pressure to act in America's national interest. The intelligence community, too, watches closely, wary of the possibility that open lines of communication with Russia could make the U.S. vulnerable to cyber espionage, election interference, or military subversion. To them, the risks are clear, and they're prepared to act to counter any perceived threat from Moscow. And then there are the geopolitical flashpoints. The situation in Ukraine, where Russia's influence remains a sensitive issue, continues to spark tensions between East and West. While Putin may hope for a friendlier U.S. approach under Trump, he's aware that American support for Ukraine is deeply embedded in the nation's foreign policy strategy. Syria is another battleground. For years, Russia's presence there has drawn criticism from the U.S., which views Russia's support of the Assad regime as an affront to democratic principles and a destabilizing force in the region. And then there's NATO. The alliance, formed as a bulwark against Soviet aggression, now finds itself again positioned as a defender against Russian influence. Putin has long viewed NATO's expansion as a threat to Russia's security, and any U.S. attempts to reset relations would need to navigate this issue carefully. For Trump, who has criticized NATO's reliance on American funding, the challenge is double-edged. Find a way to satisfy NATO obligations while also extending an olive branch to Russia. Putin knows that the window for a successful reset is narrow and that resistance within the U.S. will be fierce. But he's banking on Trump's ability to cut through the red tape, to push for dialogue where others would have faltered. Will Trump be able to overcome these barriers, or will his administration be caught in the crossfire of American bureaucracy and Cold War-era distrust? While Trump's supporters celebrate, America itself remains divided, split along lines of ideology and education. The phrase United States of America feels increasingly like a contradiction. The rift isn't just political, it's cultural, personal, and deeply rooted in experiences that have shaped the identity of American voters. Among the starkest divides is the education gap, an often overlooked but powerful predictor of political allegiance. The data from this election tells a clear story. States with higher levels of education lean toward the Democrats, while states with lower education levels overwhelmingly supported Trump. This isn't just about policy, it's about a fundamental divide in worldview. To the highly educated, the issues of climate change, social justice, and healthcare reform resonate deeply. They view the world through a lens of global responsibility, scientific consensus, and institutional trust. But for many of Trump's supporters, especially those without college degrees, the concerns are different. Their worries center on economic survival, community safety, and the preservation of values they feel are slipping away in a rapidly changing society. They see in Trump a leader who understands their struggle, a fighter willing to take on the elites who, in their view, have left them behind. To them, Trump isn't just a politician. He's a voice in the wilderness, speaking truths others ignore. As these two sides pull further apart, the American political landscape becomes a battlefield. Ideologies are no longer merely viewpoints, they're identities, shaping how individuals see themselves and their place in the nation. And while Trump's victory might give hope to one side, it deepens the fears and frustrations of the other, leaving America at a critical juncture where compromise feels nearly impossible. With the cheers of his supporters still ringing in his ears, Trump turns his attention to the issues he knows matter most to them: immigration, border security, and economic policy form the backbone of his agenda, and he's determined to act quickly. Trump's promise of a massive deportation effort sends shockwaves across the nation, raising questions about how such an ambitious plan will be implemented and at what cost. He's committed to strengthening the border with Mexico, vowing to build a wall that will prevent illegal crossings and enforce the rule of law. For Trump, the border isn't just a line on a map, it's a symbol of American sovereignty, a rallying point for those who feel the country has been too lenient for too long. But this hardline stance on immigration will come at a price. Trump faces logistical and political challenges, from managing the cost of large-scale deportations to navigating resistance from states that oppose his immigration policies. On the economic front, Trump's focus remains on domestic issues. He's promised to revitalize American manufacturing, to bring back jobs lost to globalization, and to reduce the nation's dependence on foreign imports. His stance is clear: America first. But how does this fit with his approach to Russia? Can he prioritize America's economic interests while also working toward a more cooperative relationship with Putin? For Trump, the challenge is to balance his ambitious domestic agenda with the demands of foreign policy. His decisions on trade, defense, and diplomacy will reverberate beyond America's borders, shaping alliances, igniting tensions, and redefining America's role in the world. It's a balancing act of epic proportions, and Trump will need to tread carefully to avoid alienating allies while pursuing his vision of a stronger, more independent United States. The possibility of a reset between the US and Russia may seem unlikely, but in Trump's presidency, Putin sees a rare window of opportunity. The past decades have seen US-Russia relations slide from cautious respect to open suspicion, each side fortifying its defenses against the other. But Putin knows that behind Trump's hardline stance lies a desire for something more straightforward, a relationship defined not by historical grudges, but by pragmatic goals. Both Trump and Putin know that counterterrorism could be the beginning of a new chapter. In a world where global threats are no longer confined to national borders, terrorism remains a shared concern. Cooperation in intelligence, surveillance, and defense could benefit both nations, strengthening their security without the need for military posturing. But counterterrorism alone won't be enough to sustain a lasting bond. Then there's energy policy. Russia, rich in natural resources, remains one of the world's largest energy producers. The US, under Trump's first term, became increasingly energy independent, reshaping its policies on oil, gas, and renewable energy. A partnership here could bring mutual benefits, with both countries working toward market stability and control over global oil prices. Yet such cooperation would require a level of trust that has been in short supply. Finally, there's the economic aspect. Putin understands that a strong economy is a pillar of national power. For Russia, an economic partnership with the US could ease the burden of sanctions, open new markets, and provide relief to a struggling Russian economy. For Trump, it would mean opportunities for American businesses, especially in sectors like technology, agriculture, and manufacturing. But economic ties are fraught with complexity, and Trump would need the support of Congress and the American public to pursue such a path. The stakes are high, and both leaders know the odds are against them. Putin can extend the invitation, but Trump must decide if he's willing to embrace a partnership that many in his own country would view as controversial. For Putin, it's a calculated risk. For Trump, it's a test of his political will and diplomatic skill. Can the two leaders overcome decades of mistrust, or will this be yet another false start in a long history of missed opportunities? As the dust settles on a divisive election and Trump prepares to step into the Oval Office once more, the world stands at a crossroads. America's new era under Trump promises both possibilities and uncertainties, leaving allies and adversaries alike questioning what comes next. Russia waits with cautious optimism, Europe braces for change, and within America, citizens wonder if their deeply divided country can ever find common ground again. For Trump, the challenge is formidable. He must balance domestic priorities with a foreign policy that navigates the complexities of global power, all while facing resistance from within his own borders. Putin, watching from Moscow, holds out a tentative hand, offering a reset that could redefine the US-Russia relationship. It's an opportunity for both leaders, a chance to turn the page on a troubled past. But as history has shown, the path to peace is rarely straightforward. If Trump and Putin can find a way to work together, they might just alter the course of global politics. But if they falter, the world could be thrown into an even deeper cycle of rivalry and suspicion. In the end, only time will tell if this moment will be remembered as a turning point or just another chapter in a long, complicated saga. If this story has sparked your curiosity about the shifting tides of global politics, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more insights into the stories that shape our world.